Welcome to Caregivers and Candid Conversation podcast, brought to you by We Support Caregivers Incorporated. Thank you for tuning in. I am Lashina McBride, the host and executive director of We Support Caregivers Incorporated. So let me just tell you about We Support Caregivers. We are a 501c3 organization that encourages and empowers individuals who care for their elderly loved ones to cultivate and to focus on self-care. To make a donation or to learn more, please visit WeSupportCaregivers.org. Also, while you're on our website, check out all the resources that we have available for you, the caregiver. From our self-care support text that you can sign up to receive, from our Care Connection emails that you can subscribe to receive, from our self-care support kits that you can sign up to receive, free educational resources, and more. Make sure you check out WeSupportCaregivers.org. So this is another podcast. I don't know if you noticed, but I introduced it differently because we decided to change the name. So why did we change the name? We changed the name to Caregivers and Candid Conversations because the flow of the show have changed. The flow of the show have changed. The flow of the show have grown. So instead of it being a monologue as it started out, which was primarily me talking, sharing information and education to you, we now have more of a dialogue to where there's guests coming on, adding and sharing information, providing information to you as well. So our new name is Caregivers and Candid Conversations Podcast, and of course is brought to you by We Support Caregivers Incorporated. So, what is trauma-informed care? It's something, that term is used very heavily. It's something that has become more popular, but what is it exactly? Well, this episode, we're going to have Holly Stevens, who is the community advocate for We Support Caregivers Incorporated. She's going to come on and she's going to introduce to us what is trauma-informed care. She's going to answer that. So after this break, we're going into the podcast and we're going to learn about what is trauma-informed care. Stay tuned. You're listening to Caregivers and Candid Conversations podcast by We Support Caregivers Incorporated. Okay, so we're joined now with Holly Stevens. In addition to being our community advocate here at We Support Caregivers Incorporated, she's going to introduce herself and let you know more about her. But the whole topic tonight is about what is trauma-informed care, and she's going to provide us information and education. So, Holly, thank you for joining.
Good afternoon, Lashina. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for making yourself available because I understand your schedule and the stress, the weight of your job. So for you to be here to give us your time, that's a blessing. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Lashina.
So tell us about you. Introduce yourself so the audience know, and then let us know what is trauma-informed care because it's become very popular.
Yes, it's a very popular term, and sometimes people call it TIC, which is TIC. So basically, for myself, I am the community advocate for We Support Caregivers. Working alongside Lashina, and she has given me this opportunity to be on this platform, and I love it. So letting you all know a little bit about myself. I do a lot of engagement into the community and get with community partners and meet with them. But the piece that I hear a lot about in today's communities is trauma-informed care.
Okay.
However, a lot of us have experienced trauma in our life at some point.
Right.
And the trauma is pretty much a person's life experiences,
Okay.
Through like, if a traumatic experience will change something in your life, and experience in order for us to deliver effective care to you.
Okay.
So we would have to know, like when we meet with a patient, we want to know, like, what happened in your life. You might not want to say what happened. You might want to say, well, what's going on now?
Right.
And so it's a different way that you approach it, so it helps us out to know what happened in a patient's past, to be able to give them the correct care, right now.
Okay.
Because I always hear this term, like, if you mistreat, you misdiagnose, So,
I like that.
Yeah. So basically, with patients, you want to make sure that you're engaging them in everything that you need them to engage in. And, know this piece about trauma-informed care, So I think that, it's an up and coming new term for a lot of organizations.
Okay.
And organizations are putting it into place.
Yes.
And they're training their staff.
Okay.
Because working in trauma for like 30 plus years for myself, it has been, to me, sometimes I go to work and it's like trauma, because it's like, okay, what I'm gonna come into today,
that's right.
What I'm having, and I relive that every day when I go back to work. So basically, trauma-informed care is basically something that you relive, or as you grow, you come back and say, oh, that triggered me.
Wow, that's I'm just, as I was listening to you talk, yes. I can say that trauma is more prevalent in our lives than we know. Another thing that I recognize about trauma, whatever traumatic experiences that we've gone through in our life, that we're still making decisions out of it. We're still implementing, the trauma in our own lives. We're still living from a place of trauma. So a lot of what you said was very valid. And it kind of put my perspective that I had about trauma kind of together. So as we go on, now you already know what our organization is about. How does trauma relates to caregiving?
Well, relating trauma to caregiving, I truly believe that, putting those two pieces, because caregiving is where that a person is caring for a person. And so if the other person has done something, like something trauma has happened to them, and that caregiver is caring for them, they feel their trauma.
Right.
So basically they are reliving that event almost, it may not be in the form of physical, but mental. They are reliving, the event with the caregiver. Wow. So relating it to caregiving, I truly believe that, we need to know the caregiving piece of it, and then we need to know the trauma-informed care, because you never know how, it may, come together where that we could put those two to say that, okay, well, I'm the caregiver, but I'm taking care of a trauma patient.
Okay. I see. How I was also looking at it as well. Like for me, I would say 90% of family caregivers, they fell into that role. For me, I fell into that role. I didn't even know what it was or what title it was supposed to be given until later on in my caregiving journey with my mother. But I will say, taking care of my mom and being pretty much not thrown in that position, but it falling on me to do, it was trauma. Because I didn't know what to expect. There was many scary moments, uncertain moments. I didn't know what to expect. And I just think the unknown can be a part of the trauma, or is the trauma, the unknown aspect of it. It was trauma on how, I think it was traumatic on just how your life changes. And you have to wrap your mind around, my life kind of have to be put on hold now. And that's not the plan I wanted for my life. You understand? Yeah. So you have to wrap your mind around that. So I will say, as it relates to caregiving, just being in the caregiving position itself, not being trained, had learned. I went through the hard knocks of learning about caregiving, girl, because I did not know, a lot of what to do. You know what I mean? I went through that, and that was traumatic for me.
Yes, Lashina, and I, when you said that about taking on that caregiving piece and being traumatic for you, I could relate right now as you spoke towards taking care of your mom. I, as an 18-year-old coming out of high school, my great grandfather lived with my grandmother, which was his daughter, and so basically, I'm an 18-year-old coming out of high school. And basically, I moved in with my grandmother and I had to become my great-grandfather's caregiver, not knowing that's what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
So it was traumatic. Now I think back, it was like traumatic because I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
But when she left, I would get anxiety because I'd be like, oh, I got to watch out for Pa. I got to make sure Pa, make sure nothing happens to him.
Right.
Make sure this, make sure that, so relating to caregiving, you don't never know when you're going to fall into that, role.
Right. And then, speaking from statistics, it shows just because baby boomers are living longer, many of us are going to be in the role of caregiver. You're going to be in that role. You're going to end up being the caregiver. It's going to be the grandchildren, great-grandchildren, the daughters, the sons. That's what it is, just because of the simple fact that baby boomers are living longer. So that's statistics. That's just the stats of things, that because people are living longer, we are in the role of caregiver. We're going to have to be in the role of caregiver.
And the caregiver role, people think of like us taking care of elderly people. It's not only us taking care of elderly people. We're parents. I'm a parent, and taking care of my daughter, it was traumatic for me being a single parent for a little bit. Well, not single when I had her, but becoming a single parent, that was traumatic,
yeah, I can see that.
Because trying to take care of child and do this and do that. So that was, a caregiving role that I didn't, know anything about being a mom, And so now, caregiving could be, pretty much anybody who's taking care of somebody who unexpected.
There you go. It's the unexpected. Unexpectedly having to take care of somebody. That's the trauma.
That's the trauma. Yes.
Unexpectedly, and that's the trauma. And then now, because it's unexpected, that's the trauma. It's now wrapping your mind around the fact, okay, I have to make these drastic changes in my own life and put things on hold, pause, to be continued, to be now in the role of caregiving. You hit the nail on the head by saying it's the unexpected.
Yes.
To unexpectedly have to take care of someone. Yes. That's where the trauma comes in.
The trauma comes in. And it's triggers. It's triggers because as you're taking care of that person, you have these anxiety.
Yes.
Depression may come because you just don't know, and then you may start having health problems.
Right.
As you take care of your loved one.
Right.
And so that's all considered under the caregiving and the trauma that comes all with it.
Right.
So as a whole, basically, we have to recognize and learn to know that, okay, I'm the caregiver. I am being traumatized by being a caregiver because it was unknown to me. That I didn't know I was going to fall in this role.
That's right.
I didn't know. So now we may have listeners that's like, oh, that's me.
That's me.
This is me.
I
didn't know that.
Right.
But it is, because you get up and then sometimes you forget about yourself. We run a self, with care, we support caregivers. We always stress about self-care.
That's the whole purpose. That's right.
We stress about self-care and, being traumatized, taking care of someone, mentally and physically, you don't think about yourself.
Correct. And this is what we're here to do. Remind the caregivers that they matter.
Yes.
that self-care matters and that they don't have to neglect themselves because of taking care of someone else. So we're celebrating, we're going to keep that popular, the self-care, and just remind them that yes, you have to develop, you have to cultivate, you have to make time for self-care for you.
Yes.
And when you're the best you can be better for other people. So this is why our organization is very important, to keep that self-care piece in front of the ears and the eyes of caregivers.
Yes. We love our caregivers.
Yes, we love
and we want to support them as much as possible.
Yes.
So all of you that's out there listening, just know that you're not alone.
You're not alone. You're not forgotten.
Alone. No,
you're not forgotten. And this is what we are here for. This is what the organization is for you. You are our passion. You are our drive for why we have an organization and why we are here, because it's all for you. Yeah. So Holly, let me ask you this. You mentioned triggers. Mm-hmm. What are some of the what can be some of the triggers, like the traumatic experiences, like what triggers are associated with that?
As we say, the unknown.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The
unknown. Like coming home and you're the caregiver, and you like walk in and you like, oh, mother, father, you know, what's going on, you know, or they just sitting there, you know, and it's like something triggered you, you know, and so you get nervous.
That's
and you get, sweaty, and, and basically you you don't have anyone to turn to.
There you go.
It's just you and them.
Oh my gosh.
And it's the weight on you.
Yes.
Like, you sit and the moments come where you cry.
That's right. Oh yeah.
You cry, and people look at you and say, well, you doing it? Or either like, well, that's your mother. That's your father.
Right.
Yes, we know that. But I'm human.
Correct. Yes. And you hit and you know what else? Another thing that was traumatic for me, not understanding at the beginning the illnesses that I had to help, that I had to take care of my mom and what she had. Not understanding those diseases, not understanding how dementia worked, not understanding the diabetic piece, not understanding how the high blood pressure worked. Had to learn the dialysis piece of it because my mom had all those things. So there were so many times of either waking up or being there, all of a sudden something happens. I remember when she first started dialysis, girl, I had so much, I was anxious.
Yeah.
I mean, and then when she would come home and become unresponsive because of either getting adjusted to dialysis or maybe it took too much fluid off of her, which caused the blood pressure to go down lower. I mean, because when she got home from dialysis, she was zonked out. Mm-hmm. She, like most patients are. So that was trauma for me. It was I mean, many days calling 911. She's unresponsive. Mom, she was still breathing, but her pulse was low. Like, it was just so much trauma involved with that. So another trigger is just it's unknown and still not knowing how to respond to the conditions that your loved one has.
Exactly. And not the unknown of like their diagnosis, their medical, like you mentioned,
correct.
Her medical and learning dialysis, learning everything about your mom's, her diagnosis and learning different terms and, things like that. And I also read like some things with triggers. It's like maybe if you go walk in the house and like something drop. And you hear a sound,
and you don't know if it's somebody.
And you don't know if it was them, or
yes,
a phone ring. Or you're at work and the phone rings,
yes,
and you like they say,
"Oh my goodness!"
Yes. So it's like triggers like that. You might hear a bell, and you be like, "Oh, what was that, mom?" Or you hear voices. And it's like different things. You hear a child voice, you be like, "What's that, my mama? What's that, my dad?"
There you go.
Or what are they in there doing?
Correct.
So I mean, it's like you're walking on eggshells all the time. Of course, now we don't want to walk on eggshells.
Right.
They cost so much money.
Girl, the eggs, that's a whole nother topic podcast by itself. Yes. Oh my gosh.
So we ain't gonna crack no eggs
girl. But listen, you reminded me of something. So trauma. I remember like when my mom was in dialysis, I would always sit in the lobby and wait for her, right? Always. I did that. Every time they came to the door, it was that trauma of is it my mom? Every time ambulance came, is it for my mom? When my sister moved down here, my sister Teresa, she moved down here from Ohio and she stayed probably about 3 years. She was like, well, what you gonna do after, you go to the house with mom? She was like, let's go do lunch or something. I said, well, I'll sit there. She said, Sheena, no. Don't sit there because you can't stop whatever's gonna be anyway. And she was like, no, let's go to lunch. Mom's gonna be fine. And that was hard for me. It was hard for me. For some idea, I thought me sitting in the lobby, at least I would know what would happen. And so, let me tell you, I would let them know, I'm going to go to lunch with my sister. Of course, they had my number on deck. But then it was like every time I got the phone call, every time the phone would ring, it had anxiety. That was trauma.
Yes.
It was trauma.
And you had to relive that trauma every time you went to dialysis with your mom.
Yep.
Even getting ready. Even preparing her to get ready for dialysis.
Yes.
That's trauma.
It was.
Because the unknown.
The unknown.
Now,
especially when maybe the last treatment, she had to go to the hospital.
Yep.
Or
And what if something did happen, like her visit before, her treatment before, so that means 2 days later, you have to go back, and all you thinking about is what happened.
Right.
That was a traumatic experience.
Yes.
So that's a life traumatic experience. So when they talk about trauma-informed care, that's what they talk about. You have to, inform people of the trauma that you have been through.
Right.
Or maybe they may not think it's a trauma.
Right. You know what? This is deeper, and I know this is kind of going off subject, but even in relationships with people, like whether it's friendships or romantically, you got to tell people this is some trauma I'm still dealing with. And this is why I don't go here.
Because you got triggers.
The triggers.
Yes.
So, and it's we have to communicate that this is so real, and I'm so appreciating this conversation because it's bringing back and it's making me realize I still have trauma.
Oh yes, we do.
I still have trauma.
I have trauma. And the trauma I have, my life experiences, even in my childhood, you think about you outside playing,
right?
And you hear something, or your sister or your brother get lost, and you think about that, and it's like a lost world. Trauma, it's like a loss, because even like your parent, I had a traumatic experience with my grandma, and I still think about it.
Wow.
She went MIA one time on us.
Lord.
On New Year's Eve.
Oh, wow.
We're getting ready to have, and all I could think of, where is she? Where is she? So one of my cousins and her mom picked her up. And they took her out for a ride.
And they didn't communicate. Okay.
And she didn't tell no one.
Right.
So, of course, I just went. So now, every time I think of New Year's Eve and think of my grandma, I think of she went MIA. And it was a traumatic experience for me. Because I was like, where is she?
Oh, wow.
So every time somebody mentioned something about their elderly person, a family member, walked off, and I see it on the TV. You know how you see on TV, you say, Mr. So-and-so, 70-something years old,
right?
And he got dementia.
Oh, boy.
And that brings a lot of past experiences for me.
Right.
And it makes me get anxiety. I wish they could find them. I wish they could find them. Because I know how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
I know how I felt when my grandmother got
moment. And that's another thing about trauma, is that's something how you was triggered by seeing somebody else's elderly parent lost. And what I recognize how you just explained it sitting in front of me, it brought all those same even though it happened long ago and you're in the now, but seeing somebody else going through it was a trigger. And it triggered those emotions and feelings back. And brought
it was like I was reliving it.
Wow.
I actually relived it every time I see that, and I think about what can I do? Because I can't imagine what they're going through and the feeling that because I know how I was feeling.
Right.
And I still feel, I get balled up. I get,
Yeah, all the emotions. Sure. And talking to you, it seems like how deep trauma is, we're making decisions from our traumatic experiences. Do you ever think the fact that at 18 you helped take care of your great granddad? Is that the reason why you took the healthcare path?
Well, no, actually, the reason why I took it was because my grandmother worked for the city of Norfolk Social Services.
Okay.
And she was like a caregiver in the home. You know, they would go to the house, and then she took care of kids. She did like foster, well, it wasn't foster kids, but she always had a passion for taking care of people.
Okay.
And I think I picked up that experience for, and I like hands-on, and I love people. And so that's how I fell into trauma, you know, working in trauma, you know, at the hospital for over 30-something years.
I can definitely say, you know, I'm in two worlds. You know, I'm in the business world, but I'm also in healthcare. I can definitely say taking care of my mom catapulted me in the healthcare industry. So, and just now working in dialysis myself, I appreciate what all the techs did, because some of the techs that are there now also took care of my mom when she was a patient there. I was like, I appreciate what you all did for my mom, because now what they did for my mom, I'm doing for other patients. You see that? So it's just amazing how trauma is such a contributing factor to the things that we do, how we act, respond, and everything. So getting back on point, Holly, and thank you. Like, this is really good. It's deep. Getting back on point. So my next question is, I think we touched on it. I think I asked, do you think caregiving is a traumatic experience? And that's yes.
Yes, we did. Yes.
So next question, how can caregivers, anybody listening to us that now can identify they've been going through a traumatic experience with caregiving, how can they overcome their trauma while still caregiving? Like, they know they got the trauma. They know that caregiving had probably been a part of that trauma, but they still got to take care of the loved one, but they still need to work through the trauma. How do they overcome that? What can you say? What can they do to do that?
What they can do, I truly believe, support system.
Okay.
Have an awesome support system. And do not be afraid to ask for anything.
Right.
I learned through a traumatic experience that I was going through, I learned that even the little small things.
Yes, the small things.
Because they may be to a point one day that they're in the house with their loved one, or they're taking care of their loved one, and all they want is a candy bar.
Yeah. Girl, yeah.
And if that person calls, if me or Lashina calls you, all our listeners out there,
right,
or tap into our Facebook page,
right,
you know, Instagram,
right,
just say, all I need is a candy bar,
right,
and we'll get somebody near you to bring you that candy bar.
We will.
You know, or you know, just a cup of coffee,
right,
you know, because people will call you and they say, is there anything I could do for you?
Right.
And you know, just take it.
Right.
Because I learned it was the small things. You know, the small things that I like. I love body sprays. I love, you know, like different kinds of like mint candy. You know, I do that, you know, and of course, you know, ain't nothing wrong with a gift card, a $5 gift card to Wawa's, you know.
Right.
So, but just let people take care of you.
Right.
While you're taking care of your loved one.
Right.
And let them be your caregiver.
Right.
And, but you doing good, you know, you feeling some kind of way taking care of your loved one, but let somebody take care of you.
Pour into you, because you need that.
Yeah, so having that support, you know, being able to do self-care days.
Yes.
Being able to even sit there with your loved one and maybe, you know, just have a peaceful conversation.
Right.
Instead of like doing.
Right.
And instead of making it like a caregiving day for you all, make it a day of love.
Yes.
And appreciation.
I like that.
You know, you appreciate you being able to be healthy enough to take care of your loved one.
Right. Right. And you said something, because Celeste and I, the prior podcast we did, she said the same thing. Sometimes caregivers just want the simplest thing. That she was visiting a caregiver and she went in and the caregiver's like, I guess she said, well, what can I do? Whatever. And the caregiver said, I just want to go to Wawa and get a slushie. Yeah. And then Celeste said, well, go get a slushie. I'm here. Go get a slushie. That's all. It's the small things. And having to been that person, like when I was taking care of my mom, I think, even though there were people I asked, people who helped, family, things of that nature. But I also believe that sometimes why caregivers don't reach out to people, it's that fear of rejection or fear that they're not going to come through.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where they have to build that list, do inventory of who they need. And I was just at an event that, like last night, that was mentioning the same thing. Let's do inventory of the people that we need.
Mm-hmm.
So caregivers, do an inventory of the people in your lives, and those people that you know that will be there for you, add them to that list.
And I could say that I'm glad you mentioned lists, because I just recently, my BF, mom had passed away last year, and we all kind of like came together,
right,
as far as like helping, being on that list for them, because her and her twin sister, they did everything, and they have a brother. They took care of their mom from sun up to sundown, and they had a list of people, and I was on the list of people. And if they called me, if I seen their number in the morning and I was off, I already knew my duty for the day.
That's nice.
I was going to be their caregiver for their mom that day.
Yes.
Without a doubt, I would just go. And of course, sometimes, I would get there, and filling in as a caregiver, I'm telling you, that's traumatic, because you don't want nothing to happen to that person while you're taking care of them.
Yep.
So you're on your toes. You're doing this. You're doing that. And you're like, wow. Nothing can happen. Nothing can happen.
That's right.
So you're sitting there with anxiety. Your emotions are all over the place that day. You're making sure that you're doing this, you're doing that. So you're being a caregiver, but you're also living through the trauma. Being there. With her. But it was. I enjoyed every bit of it. I enjoyed every bit of it. Taking care of her. I would do little things with her and stuff.
Right.
So, but getting back to our question where you say, like, what can caregivers do? I see a sign that you got up here on one of your boards, and it say, do small things with great love.
Yes.
Do small things with great love.
Small.
Yep. So the caregivers, most people, when they want to show their love, they showing it in maybe a small token, or just calling you, that day, giving you time. And a lot of times to call caregivers, I really feel like for, if you're their friend, you're that, you want to be there, you want to talk to them, try to catch them in the morning.
Okay.
Try to catch them in the morning, and you could talk to them, and they could tell you, and I'm going to tell you, it will make a big difference.
And that communication piece, because everybody don't know what's going on. You gotta let them know, I gotta start taking care of my mom. You don't know who can help, or I have this day available, or this, that, whatever. I can sit with her, whatever like that. So communication is key.
Yes.
Another thing. So what is the outcome? What do you think the outcome is of trauma that goes undiagnosed or addressed?
The outcome will be they don't take care of themselves.
There you go.
They don't take care of themselves, and they miss doctor's appointments.
There you go.
Because they don't have anyone to fill in to take care of their loved one. They basically miss out on a lot of family gatherings. Other family gatherings. Miss work.
Yep.
They can miss hours of work. A lot of hours of work. And I mean, it could be an array of things. It could look different in different people.
For everyone, yeah.
Yes, so it's different, So the outcome for me, taking care of my great-grandfather, was that I learned to take care of him, learned to take care of elderly, and was not afraid. Because, back when I was smaller, some kids would be like, oh, they old people, I take care. But, that for me, it wasn't. But I believe that people's health would really go down, because, they would be like, no, I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to the doctor today, and, dental health, people, their dental, and basically friendships. They lose friendships because, of taking care of their loved one, because they're not able to, like I said, get out, and do things. And
which is trauma. All that's trauma.
And then the outcome for the patient, not only talked about the caregiver piece, but the outcome for the patient. They may have to like do therapy in the house, PTOT, or their health may fail them, as their caregiver is taking care of them. So the caregiver has that on top of them not being able to go to the doctor.
Right.
But like it's like trying to get my loved one health to stay healthy, because they don't look forward to them getting, sometimes like they're being healthy, and then all of a sudden they got another health problem coming.
Right.
On top of one another, so the outcome would be that, it could be different. It could look different for, a lot of people. It could look totally different.
Okay, so what would you say, like, if somebody know that they're experiencing trauma, who can I reach out to, or how? I know you said support, like a support system, because I think while you're in trauma, you can't address it at that time
because your mind is not stable.
Right.
Well, it's in a disarray. It's almost like scribbling. Like people. Like a cat. You take a pencil and scribble all of and you're like, you don't know which way to go because you're not aware, and like being aware of like what you need to do, even though you fall into being a caregiver, but you have to learn a lot.
I had to learn so much, and I'm really thankful for all of the visiting physicians that came, and because my mom got to the point where she wasn't going to go to the doctor, so I had the doctors come to the house.
That was
awesome. Did everything from blood work, took her urine, x-ray. That she only had to go to the hospital if something came back, or infection, or levels or something too low, and she got to get blood or whatever like that. But I had everything done in the house, from podiatry, all that stuff. So I'm really thankful to every visiting physician and podiatrist and nurse that came and took care of my mom. And those services are still needed. Hopefully they're still in demand, especially when you're dealing with someone who has dementia. You're not getting them out the house. It's a hassle. That's a whole other podcast for a whole other day, but I'm just saying, you're not. Okay, Holly, so I will also ask, and I think we touched on this already, can undiagnosed trauma that's not addressed lead to other issues?
Yes.
I think
health. Yes, your health is very important, in order to take care of someone. And, like you said, we touched on already, but I truly believe you cannot take care of someone if you're sick yourself.
That's true.
Because your mind is not focused, even though you may try to take care of that loved one, but it's not going to be healthy.
Right.
It's not going to be healthy. And and your loved one will suffer.
That's right. They will. Okay, Holly, I appreciate. I think we definitely covered what is trauma-informed care. We introduced it to our audience, and I'm so thankful you made the time to introduce us to this. So, because we're gonna have more, guests come on, maybe expound on it a little more, or even speak about their trauma that they're in, and while taking care of their loved one and everything like that. So I appreciate you for your time.
Thank you so much, Lashina. I appreciate coming up here. And yes, the trauma-informed care, we would probably could follow up and get some other speakers, to come in. They are well trained in trauma-informed care, and they will be more than happy to be on this platform.
Well, thank you. And we look forward to doing that. So this concludes our Caregiver and Candid Conversation podcast. We truly thank Holly Stevens for coming in and educating us about trauma-informed care. She defined what trauma-informed care is, and she answered a plethora of other questions to provide information and insight about trauma-informed care. So we appreciate her, and we appreciate you for tuning in. Keep it locked here at We Support Caregivers Incorporated, go to our website, WeSupportCaregivers.org, and see all the resources that we have available to you, the caregivers. Subscribe to something, sign up for something. It's for you. So make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Until next time, take care of yourself. Remember, self-care is self-love. The way that we take care of ourselves is a reflection of the love that we have for ourselves. So let's love ourselves better. Until next time, take care.